What stopped you from committing suicide? My dog. Was high as a kite at home on my own, 3 bottles of wine in and a handful of pills ready to go. My dog literally intervened. He jumped up at me and kept licking my face and jumping on the hand with the pills. He is my best friend and I literally owe him my life. My, now ex-friend stopped me in the act. I was very close, had a plan, started implementing, and he broke into the room. He just sat and watched me come down from where I was at and listened to my drunken depressed thoughts. It was probably the hardest thing we went through as friends. I treated him awfully and I don't blame him for moving on in his life after that. I just really wish I could thank him for everything he did for me. I was in a terrible place and I was the worst version of myself that I could be. I promised myself, after he left, that I wouldn't attempt on my life again and wouldn't waste the chance he gave me. Sometimes I wish I could apologize, but I know no apology would be good enough for what I did. Now, I just promise to be a better version of myself than I was yesterday. Hopefully one day I can give him credit where credit is due. I wish the best for him and I'm honestly blessed he was there at all. Picked up a PS5. My dog. Just seeing him look at me curiously broke me down and I started sobbing. Talking to a real friend, not keep my ideas to me, opened my heart/mind. And now after 9 years I have a wife and a baby boy. We deserve to be happy. Fight. I actually wrote an instruction manual for my 6-month-old rabbit's care, her favorite veggies, food to avoid, grooming schedule, etc., instead of a note so my family would know how to care for her when I ended my life. But as I wrote it I realized I didn't trust a single person to follow the instruction manual or to even keep her. Would they know that bunnies need more than a carrot and water? What if she ended up at a shelter? Or sold on Craigslist to someone who would feed her to a snake? I decided that I couldn't kill myself for her sake. Bunny is now 4 and pleasantly plump. I'm engaged to the love of my life, and we just bought our first apartment together. Bunny is getting her own room when we move in. It gets better. My dog. I would say my fiance, and although he has been a huge reason, he was not my main reason. It was for my young siblings. I'm the oldest of 7, and I would never want them to go through this. Even if I do still have the thoughts and urges to do so, their little faces all pop into my mind, and I never want them to be in pain because of my pain. I'd rather just suck it all up and cry silently throughout life than to make them bury their oldest sister. It's a shitty legacy to leave behind. Not for me, but my kids and extended family. My youngest brother went through with it and I consider him a pussy because of it. His daughter was 10 at the time. He's a dick for doing that. Gun jammed. No one, not even my fiance, knows to this day. I've tried and failed. The only thing stopping me now is my family and knowing what it would do to them. I didn't think about it before and only cared about myself in the past. Now it's different. I frame it sometimes as me choosing to live so I don't hurt them more than I already have. The thought of my family standing there at my grave. First time thinking about my mom. A good friend of mine had died a year earlier. He got cancer, and I vividly remember how broken his mom was at the funeral. I thought about it and realized I couldn't do that to my own mother. Second time, about a decade after that, a lot of stuff had happened but I was back in a deep depression and didn't know how to handle it. Life was just not working out for me in any possible sense of the way and I didn't feel strong enough to get back up at the time. I had just turned 30, had no job, no money and had to move back to my parents' home because of it after years of living by myself. I was also having some alcohol and other substance abuses that weren't helping me out. So I thought, well, I got to live 30 years, I think that's enough. I've tried, and I've lost, maybe I should just give up, and in a sense that thought was kind of liberating because at that moment it felt like I had an option. I didn't have to be that sad and that hurt and that broken anymore, I could just kill myself. I didn't do it because after thinking that I thought to myself, okay, that's an option that's there, but it's a very permanent choice so I have to be sure that's what I want to do. So I'm going to give myself a year to try my hardest to live and change. If nothing happens, if 365 days from now I still feel the same way as I do today, then so be it. But I think I owe myself to at least try one more time. It's been 2 years and 4 months since then. And even though life isn't perfect, it's gotten much better and it's coming together little by little. I don't know if it will ever fully do. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll end up killing myself a few years down the line. But for now at least I'm choosing to try and to live. So, it's a bit roundabout but stay with me here. I did commit suicide, fully committed. It didn't take, no, I won't go into details. It was a secret and my family never and hopefully will never find out about it. What stopped me from trying again was the next few days after I was in a total surreal state one evening watching a movie with my parents and brothers and just thought about what it would be like for my family to find my body and what their lives would be like after that. Every detail of finding the body, calling police, calling family and friends, planning the funeral, going through with the funeral, everything after for the next month, holidays, years, etc. So, for a long time, and still a bit to this day, is honestly guilt is the thing that kept me going. I met my wife a few years later and over time she sparked a will in me to want to still experience things in life and that I'm not yet ready to stop experiencing the world with her and with loved ones. I told my wife about it well before we were married, so she is very supportive when I take a turn into a hole. I do still have suicidal ideation from time to time, but I've been in counseling and on medication to prevent me from getting back into the level of the deep place again where I actually answered the call of the void. It's exhausting work to keep on it at times, but learning to enjoy life for me and what I want is worth it. I know many people who tried to commit suicide. Sadly, I couldn't help all of them and some of them went through with it. But even worse, most of them survived. The people that didn't do it are either fine or are getting therapy, which is good. The people that survived their attempts are all gone now. I don't mean dead, and I don't know what happened to them. But I'm happy I at least stopped a few people from committing suicide, but it's sad how this happens. From what I've heard, people either have good memories that they don't want to go, they want to do things, family and friends show them that they shouldn't, and they are scared of the pain and the chance of survival. I'm lucky I've never had to think about committing suicide, but I still acknowledge the fact that suicide is very real and it's a big problem. It's very sad how people have this option and go through with it, but that's what they do, and personally I think it's sad to think that people are so miserable that they commit suicide, but that's what I think. And hey, if you ever thought about it or are thinking about it, remember, you are all amazing no matter what, and there is 100% a person out there who will accept you for who you are, so please don't end it. Find yourself and live on an amazing life. If you've found this or have bothered to read this, I hope you have the best life you can and don't end it prematurely. Thanks and bye, Victory Hand. Hearing that one person's voice. He called me after I told him I don't feel good, which was understandable after eating the amount of pills I did, but he didn't know. We talked for a bit. Well, it was rather him monologuing to my drugged ass. I remember this very vaguely, as among all the meds I took was lorazepam, which always gave me mild amnesia. But I do remember him telling me about how inflation works and going on and on about it as I was lying on my floor trying not to vomit. He's not much of a talker, so I was both impressed and barely conscious while listening. And then it got to me, this is too normal to hear him talk about such mundane shit. How do I proceed after he hangs up? I'm not ready to do this alone. I'm gonna be so incredibly lonely without his voice, but there's virtually no way he'll let me do this, so I just skipped the dramatic part and straight up asked him to call an ambulance. To this day I'm not sure if he knows how much of an impact he had on this whole situation. Without this stupid how inflation works talk, I wouldn't change my mind and he wouldn't know to call for help. He saved me, but not in the most obvious way. I realized if it was gone, no one would protect my brother from what I was going through. I was the only line of defense between him and my parents. I was an asshole for years as a teenager and ignored my entire family completely. It's a long story and one I'd rather not discuss openly, but the reason it's relevant is because I did nothing to deserve the love my sister has for me. One day she came into my room unprompted and sat next to me. I ignored her as was usual for me then, and she just started crying quietly and sat there for a while. Then she told me she didn't want me to die and hugged me, and I started crying too. Every time it gets too hard to go on, I remember how she still loved me no matter what, and how devastated she was to even think of me being gone. I'm working to be a better person for her. My infant son smiled at me and all the thoughts went away. My wife and pets. They need my help and I want to see them doing okay. The fear of slow pain. Delusional feeling that it will get better, but it won't. Getting crippled for the rest of my life, and not being able to try doing it again. No trusted methods of fast end. Got scammed 3 times buying pills that's supposed to end my life, but they didn't. Every time I ended up in hospital. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship at 15. My GF at the time drove me mad. I lost all my friends and she wouldn't let me have freedom talk to other females in my age group, and I even sought help outside family and friends, not professionally, just my neighbor. They all said I should break up with her, but I couldn't go through with it. I felt alone and trapped. I wrote a note at night and went to school the following day. My parents found the note when I was at school and confronted me about it that evening. That next day I sent her a text off my mom's phone. "We are done," changed my number and went to Great America.